The floating palace of Zenthara gleamed like a massive crystal in the purple sky. Marcus Chen stood at the grand entrance, trying not to look nervous. He was just a human diplomat, 28 years old, and this was his first major assignment. The Velian Empire was ancient and powerful, and humans were still the new kids in the galaxy. Remember Marcus, his supervisor, had told him before he left the ship, "Don't touch anything. Don't speak unless spoken to." The Velians cared deeply about tradition. Marcus had nodded confidently then. Now, walking through halls where everything seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light, he felt much less sure of himself. Princess Lyria waited in the ceremonial hall. She was tall, even for a Velian, with skin that looked like pale blue crystal. Patterns of light moved beneath her surface, changing with her emotions. Right now, they moved slowly, which Marcus had learned meant she was calm and formal. "Human diplomat Marcus Chen," she said, her voice like wind chimes. "Welcome to Zenthara. I am Princess Lyria, daughter of Emperor Valen. I will be conducting the trade negotiations with you." Marcus bowed the way he had practiced. "Thank you, Princess. I'm honored to be here." The patterns under her skin flickered faster for just a moment. Was that amusement? Marcus could not be sure. The ceremony began an hour later. The great hall filled with Velian nobles, all of them tall and crystalline, all of them watching Marcus with curious eyes. The emperor sat on a throne that seemed to grow from the floor itself, his expression unreadable. An old Velian priest brought out the ceremonial artifacts. Objects that represented the four pillars of Velian society: patience, precision, honor, and unity. Each artifact was placed on a floating platform that drifted slowly around the room. Marcus watched carefully, trying to understand what was happening. Princess Lyria stood beside him, occasionally whispering explanations. Her presence made him feel a bit less alone. "The Emperor will bless each artifact," she whispered. "Then we will share the ceremonial wine, and the negotiations can begin." It seemed simple enough. Marcus relaxed slightly. That was his first mistake. The Emperor rose and began speaking in the ancient Velian language. His words echoed through the hall. He reached out to touch the first artifact, a sphere that represented patience. The moment his hand touched it, the sphere glowed brighter. He moved to the second artifact, a pyramid for precision. Again, it glowed at his touch. Then came the third artifact, representing honor. It was a complex geometric shape that hurt to look at directly. The Emperor reached for it, but his hand trembled. He was old, Marcus realized. Very old. The artifact began to slip. Marcus did not think. He just reacted. He lunged forward and caught the artifact before it could fall to the floor. The entire hall went silent. Marcus stood there, holding the sacred object, suddenly realizing what he had done. Every Velian in the room stared at him. The patterns under their skin had gone completely still, which he had learned meant shock or anger. "Hey, I'm sorry," Marcus said. "It was going to fall, and you touched it." The Emperor's voice boomed through the hall. The patterns under his skin blazed red with fury. "You, an outsider, dared to touch a royal relic with your alien hands?" "Father," he did not know. Princess Lyria stepped forward, but the Emperor cut her off. "Silence. You defend this creature's ignorance?" "It was an honest mistake," Lyria insisted. Her own patterns flickered between blue and yellow, showing her distress. He was trying to help. Help. The Emperor's laugh was cold. "He has violated our most sacred law. No outsider may touch the royal relics. This is known throughout the galaxy." Marcus wanted to explain that humans were new to the galaxy. They did not know all these rules yet, but his throat felt tight. He could see guards moving closer, their hands on their weapons. "There must be a trial," one of the old nobles called out. Yes, another agreed. The trial of understanding. Marcus saw Princess Lyria's patterns flash bright white, which he had learned meant fear. "Your Majesty, please," she said quickly. "The trial of understanding is too dangerous for a human. Their biology is different from ours. It could kill him, and perhaps he should have thought of that before disgracing our ceremony," the Emperor said coldly. "The trial will begin at sunset." The guards moved forward to take Marcus, but Princess Lyria stepped between them. "Father, I beg you to reconsider enough." The Emperor's voice cracked like thunder. "You embarrass yourself, daughter. Step aside, or you will share in his punishment." For a long moment, Lyria stood frozen. Her patterns swirled with conflicting colors. Then she looked at Marcus, and something in her expression changed. "Run," she whispered. "What?" "Run!" Lyria grabbed Marcus's hand and pulled him toward a side door. The hall erupted in chaos. Guards shouted and began to pursue them. They ran through corridors of crystal and light. Marcus could barely keep up with Lyria's longer legs. Behind them, he heard the heavy footsteps of guards and the angry shouts of nobles. "This way." Lyria pulled him down a narrow passage. The walls here were darker, older. This part of the palace was not meant for visitors. She pressed her hand against a wall panel. A hidden door slid open, revealing a dark tunnel that smelled of dust and age. "Get in." Marcus stumbled into the darkness. Lyria followed and pressed the panel again. The door began to close. Through the narrowing gap, Marcus could see the guards approaching. Commander Thane, the princess's betrothed, led them. His face was twisted with anger. The door sealed shut with a soft click in the sudden darkness. Marcus heard Lyria breathing hard. Then her hand struck the wall, and her voice rang out, filled with frustration and fear. "You got me into this trouble, human." Her words echoed in the tunnel. Marcus stood in the dark, his heart pounding, and realized that in trying to help, he might have just destroyed everything, not just the trade, negotiations, not just his career, but possibly the future of human-Velian relations itself. And he had dragged a princess down with him. End of Part 1 #. Part 2. The unlikely alliance. The tunnel was completely dark for several seconds. Then Lyria's skin began to glow softly, providing just enough light to see by. Her patterns moved in rapid, chaotic swirls of blue and red dot. Marcus had learned that meant she was experiencing strong, conflicting emotions. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to be quiet," Lyria snapped. She pressed her ear against the sealed door, listening. After a moment, she relaxed slightly. "They're moving away. They think we went in a different direction." She turned to face him, and in the dim glow of her skin, her eyes looked both angry and afraid. "Do you understand what you have done?" she asked. "What we have done?" Marcus nodded slowly. "I broke your laws, and you helped me escape. They'll think you're a traitor. Not think. No." Lyria's laugh was bitter. She started walking down the tunnel, and Marcus followed. "I am a traitor now. I helped an outsider escape justice. The penalty for that is exile at best. At worst, ... She did not finish the sentence. "Then why did you help me?" Lyria was silent for a long moment as they walked through the dusty passage. The walls were rough here, not the smooth crystal of the palace above. This was old construction, maybe even from before the Velian Empire became what it was today. "Because," she finally said, "the trial of understanding would have killed you. I am certain of it." "What is this trial exactly?" Lyria's glow dimmed slightly. "It was created 300 years ago, after a war with another species. A species that looked and acted very much like humans do. The trial is supposed to test whether an outsider can truly understand our ways. But really," she paused, "really, it is designed to punish those who are too different from us." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "So your father knew it would kill me. Or perhaps he simply did not care whether you lived or died." Lyria's voice was cold. "My father is not a cruel man, but he values tradition above all else. Even above compassion." They walked in silence for a while. The tunnel seemed to go on forever, sloping downward into the depths of the floating palace. Marcus wondered how such a massive structure could float at all, but this did not seem like the right time to ask. "Where are we going?" he asked instead. "To the old observatory. My grandmother used to work there before she died. It has been abandoned for 20 years. No one will think to look for us there, and then what? I do not know." Lyria's admission sounded painful. "I have never broken a rule in my life. I have always done exactly what was expected of me. And now, she gestured helplessly at the dark tunnel around them. Now I am a fugitive with a human who does not know how to not cause trouble. Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. In my defense, I was trying to help. That is what makes it worse. Lyria stopped walking and turned to face him. Her glow brightened with emotion. If you had been deliberately disrespectful, I could understand it. I could be angry. But you were just being ... human. You saw something falling, and you caught it. On your world, that would be good. Here, it is a crime. That doesn't seem fair. Fair. Lyria started walking again, faster now. What does fairness have to do with tradition? What does it have to do with honor? My people have followed these rules for thousands of years. They are what make us Velian. They are what separate us from chaos. Marcus heard the doubt in her voice, though. She was saying the words she had been taught, but they sounded hollow in the empty tunnel. They walked for another 20 minutes before reaching a sealed door. Lyria pressed her hand against it, and nothing happened. The power is off, she muttered. She examined the doorframe. There should be a manual release, but I cannot find it in this darkness. Let me try, Marcus said. He pulled out a small flashlight from his pocket. Lyria stared at it. What is that? A flashlight. A portable light source. He turned it on, and bright white light flooded the tunnel. Lyria flinched back, her patterns flashing in surprise. That is remarkable. So simple, but we never thought to make something like that. We just use our own light. Marcus found the manual release panel and opened it. Inside was a complex mechanism of crystals and energy conduits, completely alien to anything he knew. But the basic principle was clear enough. There was a blockage in the power flow. Hand me that, he said, pointing to a piece of broken crystal on the ground. Lyria gave it to him, watching curiously as he used it to bridge two connections in the mechanism. The door hummed to life and slid open. Ow! Did you know how to do that? Lyria asked. I didn't, exactly. But energy systems work on basic principles, no matter what technology you use. You just have to find where the flow is interrupted and reconnect it. Very human, Lyria said slowly. A Velian would have studied the mechanism for hours to understand it completely before attempting a repair. You've just tried something, and it worked. This time. But what if it had not? What if you had caused an explosion or made things worse? Marcus shrugged. Then we would have found another way. That's what humans do. We try things, and if they don't work, we try something else. They entered the observatory, and Marcus caught his breath. Even covered in dust and abandoned for years, it was beautiful. A massive dome of crystal showed the stars above. And in the center was an ancient telescope that looked nothing like human. Designs but clearly served the same purpose. Lyria moved to a control panel and managed to activate some emergency lighting. The room filled with a soft glow. My grandmother spent 50 years here, she said quietly. She studied other worlds, other species. She believed that understanding others would make us stronger, not weaker. What happened to her? She died disappointed. The more she learned about other species, the more she questioned our traditions. The court elders thought she was becoming dangerous. They say she died of old age, but Lyria trailed off. Marcus understood. Some questions were too dangerous to ask aloud. Lyria sat down on a bench that had once been her grandmother's. For the first time since they started running, she looked truly exhausted. The patterns under her skin moved slowly, sadly. I have always felt trapped, she said suddenly. Like I am living a life that was written for me before I was born. Princess Lyria will marry Commander Thane. Princess Lyria will produce heirs. Princess Lyria will smile and follow the rules and never question anything. She looked at Marcus. Does that sound like living to you? Marcus sat down beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. No, he said. It sounds like existing. There is a difference. Yes, Lyria's voice was barely a whisper. There is. They sat in silence for a while. Two very different beings from two very different worlds. Both feeling trapped by circumstances beyond their control. Outside, somewhere in the palace above, guards were searching for them. Commander Thane was hunting his wayward bride. The Emperor was planning his next move. But in that moment, in that forgotten observatory, where an old Velian woman had once dreamed of understanding the stars, a human and a princess began to understand each other, and that understanding would change everything. End of Part 2 #. Part 3. Revelations and Rising Stakes. Marcus woke to find Lyria standing at the old telescope, her glow providing soft light in the dark observatory. He had fallen asleep on the bench, exhausted from running and stress. He checked his watch and saw that only 3 hours had passed. "You should rest too," he said. "I cannot." Lyria did not turn from the telescope. "I keep thinking about what happens next. We cannot hide here forever. Eventually, they will find us. And when they do, we'll figure something out, will we?" Now she did turn, and her patterns were dark with doubt. "You are very optimistic for someone facing execution." Marcus stood and stretched. His back hurt from the hard bench. Humans have a saying, "It's always darkest before the dawn." Things seem impossible until suddenly they're not. More human chaos thinking, Lyria said. But there was less criticism in her voice than before. Marcus explored the observatory while Lyria watched. Most of the equipment was dead, but he found a terminal in the corner that still had power. It was old, covered in dust, but when he touched the screen, it flickered to life. "Lyria, look at this." She came over, curious. The screen showed a menu in Velian script that Marcus could not read, but the structure was familiar enough.
"Oh, well."
"It is the palace archive system," Lyria said, surprised. "My grandmother must have had access to the historical records for her research." "Can you search for information about the Trial of Understanding?" Lyria hesitated. "Why would you want to know more about it?" "Because knowledge is power. If we understand what we're facing, maybe we can find a way to fight it." Lyria's patterns flickered with uncertainty, but she sat down at the terminal and began searching. Her fingers moved over the crystal interface, and screens of text appeared. She read in silence for several minutes, her glow growing dimmer with each passage. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "This cannot be right." Lyria's voice shook. She read more, her patterns now flashing with anger and horror. This is terrible. What did you find?" Lyria turned to him, and Marcus saw something he had not seen before. She looked truly afraid. "The Trial of Understanding was created exactly 312 years ago," she said. "After first contact with a species called the Kethari, they were bipedal, like you. They had 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. They were creative and chaotic and did not respect our traditions. What happened to them? We went to war. It lasted 20 years. Millions died on both sides. And when it finally ended, when the Cathari were defeated and scattered across the galaxy, the Velian Empire created the Trial of Understanding." Lyria's hands clenched into fists. "It was designed specifically to identify beings like the Kethari, to test for their ways of thinking, their biological responses, and to ensure they could never threaten us again." Marcus felt cold understanding creep over him. "You're saying the trial is designed to kill anyone who resembles the Cathari?" "Yes, and Marcus, ... Lyria pulled up an image on the screen. It showed a Cathari individual. Marcus stared at it and felt his stomach drop. It could have been a human. Not identical, but close enough that they could have been cousins. The same basic body plan, the same general features. "We look like them," he whispered. "Yes. Which means my father knew exactly what he was doing when he ordered you to face the trial. It was not about justice or honor. It was about eliminating a potential threat." Lyria stood up abruptly, her patterns blazing red. He lied. All his talk of tradition and sacred law, he was just afraid. Afraid that humans might be another species that refuses to bow to Velian superiority. Marcus sat down heavily. This changed everything. It was not just his life at stake anymore. If the Velian Empire saw humans as a threat because they resembled the Cathari, then every human in the galaxy could be in danger. "We need to warn my people," he said. "With what?" "We are trapped here. We have no way to contact your ship. There has to be something. A communication system. Emergency signals. Lyria shook her head. The palace has jamming fields to prevent unauthorized communications. Nothing gets in or out without the Emperor's knowledge. There had to be a way. Humans had not come this far, had not reached the stars by giving up when things looked impossible. He stopped suddenly. What about the economic situation? You mentioned trade negotiations. Why does the Velian Empire want to trade with humans if they see us as a threat? Lyria looked surprised by the question. Because we need what you offer. Rare minerals, biological compounds, technological innovations. Our empire is vast but resource poor in certain areas. Trade with humanity could solve many problems. So some Velians want trade, but others see us as enemies. Yes, the court is divided. The merchants and younger nobles want to embrace new partnerships. The old guard, like my father, want to maintain traditional isolation. Lyria's eyes widened. You think this is about more than just you touching a relic? I think I was set up. Someone wanted the negotiations to fail, and I gave them the perfect excuse. Before Lyria could respond, they heard a sound that made them both freeze. Footsteps. Multiple people. Moving through the tunnels they had used earlier. They found us, Lyria whispered. Marcus looked around frantically. The observatory had only one entrance, and the searchers were between them and escape. They were trapped. The footsteps came closer. Voices echoed in the tunnel, too distant to make out words. Lyria moved to stand beside Marcus. Her patterns were swirling with determination. If they take us, I want you to know that I do not regret helping you, even if it costs me everything. We're not done yet, Marcus said. The door to the observatory slid open. But instead of palace guards, Commander Thane stepped through alone. He sealed the door behind him and turned to face them. Lyria's patterns flashed white with shock. Thane, what are you doing? Commander Thane was tall and broad, with skin that showed deep green patterns. He looked between Lyria and Marcus, his expression unreadable. I am giving you a chance, he said quietly. The guards think I am searching the eastern wing. I have perhaps 10 minutes before they realize I lied to them. Why would you help us? Marcus asked, suspicious. Thane's patterns flickered with something like pain. Because I watched my grandfather die in the name of tradition. He questioned an order from the Emperor, an order to execute a diplomat from the Serati species for a minor breach of protocol. My grandfather said it was unjust. He was punished for that doubt by being forced to carry out the execution himself. Thane's voice hardened. He was never the same after, and I swore I would not become like him. I would not blindly follow orders that I knew were wrong. Lyria stared at her betrothed as if seeing him for the first time. You believe Marcus should not be punished. I believe your father is afraid, and fear makes people cruel. Thane looked at Marcus. I do not know if humans are trustworthy, but I know that murdering their diplomat to prevent peace is not the action of a just empire. What do you suggest we do? Marcus asked. There is a communication hub in the palace's central tower. If you could reach it, you could contact your ship, but it is heavily guarded. Then how do we get there? Thane smiled grimly. With a distraction, I will lead the guards away. You will have perhaps 5 minutes. Make them count. He moved toward the door, then paused and looked at Lyria. I never wanted to marry you because I was ordered to. I wanted to marry someone who would stand up for what is right, even when it is hard. Today, I saw that person. His patterns glowed warm amber. Be safe, princess. Then he was gone, the door sealing behind him. Lyria stood frozen, her patterns a chaos of emotions. Marcus gently touched her shoulder. We need to move. He's giving us a chance. We can't waste it. She nodded, taking a shaky breath. The communication hub. This way, they left the observatory and ran toward an uncertain future. Carrying the truth that could save both their peoples or destroy everything. Asterisk, asterisk. End of part 3, asterisk, asterisk, hash part 4. The communication hub was located in the highest tower of the palace, where crystal spires reached toward the purple sky. Lyria led Marcus through service corridors, moving quickly but carefully. They could hear shouts and running footsteps throughout the palace as guards responded to Commander Thane's distraction. He is leading them toward the lower gardens, Lyria said. Listening to the distant commotion, he will not be able to hold their attention for long. They climbed a spiral staircase that seemed to go up forever. Marcus's legs burned, but he pushed through the pain. At the top, Lyria pressed her hand against a wall panel. This is the communications level. There will be guards. How many? Usually 4. But with the palace on alert, perhaps more, Marcus thought quickly. Is there another way in? Lyria considered. There is a maintenance access, but it will be locked, and I can open locks. Show me. She led him to a smaller door 50 meters down the corridor. As promised, it was locked. But the mechanism was similar to the one in the observatory. Marcus studied it for 30 seconds, then used a piece of wire from his pocket to bridge to connections. The door clicked open. You carry lockpicking tools with you? Lyria asked, amazed. It's just wire. Humans learn to improvise, he grinned. We call it being resourceful. You might call it chaos. They slipped into the maintenance passage and found themselves in a narrow crawlspace above the communication hub. Through gaps in the floor panels, they could see 6 guards below, all armed and alert. Too many, Lyria whispered. We cannot fight them. We don't have to. I just need 30 seconds at that console. Marcus pointed to the main communication terminal. Can you get them to look away? How? Be a princess. Give them orders. Lyria stared at him. They will arrest me. Not if you're loud and angry enough. In my experience, people hesitate when someone important is yelling at them. That hesitation is all we need. Lyria's patterns swirled with fear and determination. She took a deep breath, then nodded. When I give the signal, drop down and run for the console. She climbed down a maintenance ladder and walked boldly into the communication hub. The guards spun toward her, weapons raised. Princess Lyria, one of them gasped. You are under arrest for IAMWHAT. Lyria's voice cracked like thunder. Her patterns blazed bright red, lighting up the entire room. You dare point weapons at the heir to the Velian throne? Stand down immediately. The guards hesitated, confused by the sudden appearance of their princess and her commanding tone. Your Highness, we have orders from the Emperor. I do not care what orders you think you have. I am your princess, and I am ordering you to stand down now. It was magnificent. Lyria stood there glowing with righteous fury, every inch the royal she was born to be. The guards lowered their weapons slightly, completely focused on her. Marcus dropped from the ceiling and ran for the console. One guard spotted him. Intruder. The human, but Marcus was already at the terminal. His fingers flew over the unfamiliar interface. The Velian system was complex, but he had spent weeks studying their technology for the trade negotiations. He found the communication protocols and opened a channel to the human ship in orbit. This is Marcus Chen, 2 human delegation ship Aurora. Emergency priority. Do you read? Static. Then a voice crackled through. Marcus? Where have you been? We've been trying to contact the palace for hours. Listen carefully. The Velian Emperor plans to execute me using something called the Trial of Understanding. It's designed to kill anyone who resembles the Cathari species. The trial is tomorrow at sunset. You need to. A guard grabbed his shoulder and pulled him away from the console. Marcus struggled, but the Velian was much stronger. You need to send a formal protest, Marcus shouted into the communicator as he was dragged back. Demand to observe the trial. Make it public. They won't dare. The guard shut down the console. The connection died. Did they hear enough? Lyria asked. She was being held by 2 guards, her hands bound with energy restraints. I hope so, Marcus said, as guards bound his hands as well. More soldiers poured into the room. Then the Emperor himself arrived, flanked by his elite guard. His patterns were dark with barely controlled rage. Daughter, he said, his voice cold. You have disappointed me beyond measure. And you have lied to me, Lyria shot back. The trial of understanding is not about justice. It is about fear and hatred. You know nothing of what you speak. I know that you would murder an innocent being because he reminds you of an old enemy. I know that you would rather start a new war than admit that different does not mean dangerous. The Emperor raised his hand as if to strike her, then lowered it slowly. You will be silent, no. Lyria's voice rang clear and strong. For the first time in my life, I will not be silent. She stepped forward, standing as tall as she could, her patterns glowing bright gold. I invoke the right of compassion, she declared. Every Velian in the room went completely still. The Emperor's patterns flickered with shock. You cannot, ... I can, and I do. By the ancient law of our people, I claim the right of compassion for this human. I declare him innocent of deliberate wrong, and I take his burden upon myself. If you would punish him, you must punish me first. Marcus did not understand what was happening, but he could see that it was significant. The Emperor looked like he had been struck. Do you understand what you are doing? He asked his daughter quietly. Yes, I am choosing justice over tradition. I am choosing compassion over fear. The right of compassion requires a public tribunal. You would subject our private shame to the entire empire? If that is what it takes to stop an innocent being from dying, then yes. The Emperor stared at his daughter for a long moment. Then he turned to his guards. Prepare the grand chamber. We will hold the tribunal at sunset. As the guards led them away, Marcus leaned close to Lyria. What just happened? I challenged my father's authority using the oldest law in our civilization. A law that says compassion is more important than any other rule. It has not been invoked in over 300 years. What happens now? Now we must prove that you deserve compassion. That understanding between our species is possible. That humans are not another Cathari to be feared and destroyed. And if we fail, Lyria's patterns dimmed. Then we both die. But at least we will die knowing we stood up for what is right. They were taken to holding cells, separated but close enough to see each other through the crystal walls. Marcus sat on the hard bench and tried to think. Somewhere above them, the human ship had received his message. They would be demanding to observe the trial, making it public, just as he had hoped. But would that be enough? He looked at Lyria in her cell. She sat with perfect posture, every inch a princess, even now. She had risked everything for him. For the idea that different species could understand each other, he could not let her down. As the purple sun began to set outside, painting the crystal palace in shades of amber and gold, Marcus Chen prepared for the most important test of his life. Not a test of survival, but a test of understanding. End of Part 4 #. Part 5. Understanding and New Beginnings. The grand chamber was filled to capacity. Every noble in the palace had come to witness the tribunal. The crystal walls had been made transparent, broadcasting the proceedings to the entire Velian Empire. Millions watched as Princess Lyria and the human diplomat Marcus Chen were brought before the Emperor. Marcus could see the human delegation in the crowd, their presence forcing the trial to be fair and public. His supervisor gave him a small nod of encouragement. The Emperor sat on his throne, his patterns carefully controlled to show nothing. But Marcus thought he saw something in the old ruler's eyes. Doubt, perhaps. Or maybe just exhaustion. We are gathered for a sacred purpose, the Emperor began. My daughter has invoked the right of compassion, claiming that this human deserves mercy despite his violation of our laws. The law requires that we test this claim through the trial of understanding. He gestured, and an ancient Velian priest stepped forward. However, the Emperor continued, and Marcus heard something new in his voice. My daughter has also revealed information that has troubled me. Information about the original purpose of this trial. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 300 years ago, we created this test in anger and fear. We designed it to punish a species that had hurt us. But the right of compassion exists to remind us that anger and fear must not rule our actions. The Emperor looked at Lyria. My daughter has challenged me to remember that. He stood up from his throne. Therefore, I propose a modification to the trial. Instead of testing whether the human can survive our ways, we will test whether our two species can work together, whether understanding between us is truly possible. The priest looked shocked. Your Majesty, this is highly irregular. Yes, it is. But perhaps that is what we need. Something irregular. Something new. The Emperor gestured, and a massive crystal sphere was brought into the chamber. Inside it, Marcus could see what looked like a complex puzzle made of light and energy. This is the harmony sphere, the Emperor explained. It requires two minds working together to solve. One must provide patience and precision. The other must provide creativity and action. Alone, neither can succeed. Together, they can create something beautiful. He looked at Marcus and Lyria. We will work together to solve this puzzle. If you succeed, you prove that our species can cooperate. If you fail... He did not finish the sentence. Marcus and Lyria were led to the sphere. Up close, it was even more complex. Patterns of light swirled inside, constantly changing, never settling. I've never solved one of these, Lyria admitted quietly. They are considered nearly impossible. Good thing I don't know enough to know it's impossible then. Marcus said with a nervous smile. They placed their hands on the sphere together. Immediately, Marcus felt something strange. It was like he could sense Lyria's thoughts, not hearing them exactly, but feeling her intentions. Her approach to the puzzle, she was trying to understand the pattern completely before making any moves. Studying every detail, every connection, trying to see the entire solution at once. But the puzzle kept changing. By the time she mapped out one section, another had shifted. It's too fast, she said, frustrated. I cannot analyze it quickly enough. Then don't analyze, Marcus said.
Feel it.
React to it. That is not how Velians think, but it's how humans think. Trust me. Marcus started moving the light patterns, following his instincts. He did not try to understand the whole thing. He just responded to what he saw, making changes that felt right. At first, it seemed like chaos. But then, Lyria began to see the method in it, where she would have spent minutes planning one move. Marcus made 10 moves, most of them wrong, but learning from each mistake. Wait, she said. Do that again? Move that pattern to the left. Marcus did. Something clicked into place. I see it now, Lyria said, excited. Your rapid attempts are revealing the underlying structure. You are testing possibilities faster than I could calculate them. And you're seeing the patterns I miss, Marcus replied. You're catching my mistakes before they break everything. They began to work together in earnest. Marcus would try things quickly, boldly, while Lyria would guide him, showing him which attempts were worth pursuing and which were dead ends. His chaos and her order began to dance together. Complementing each other perfectly, the crowd watched in silence as the puzzle began to solve itself. Light patterns aligned, creating harmonies of color and sound. The sphere began to glow brighter and brighter. We're close, Lyria whispered. One more sequence, but it requires perfect timing between us. Tell me what to do when I say now. Move the blue pattern to the center. I will move the gold pattern to match. We must do it at exactly the same moment. Marcus positioned his hands. Ready, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Now. They moved together, perfectly synchronized. The sphere erupted in brilliant light. Harmonious sounds filled the chamber, a song of crystal and starlight. The puzzle was complete. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs and gasps. The human delegation cheered. The Emperor stood slowly. His patterns had gone completely still, showing deep emotion that he could not hide. "You have succeeded," he said quietly. "You have proven that cooperation is possible." He descended from his throne and walked to stand before them. Up close, Marcus could see how old the Emperor truly was, how tired. "I owe you both an apology," the Emperor said, "and I owe my people the truth." He turned to address the watching millions. 300 years ago, the Velian Empire went to war. We fought against a species called the Ketheri, who were different from us. Creative where we were structured, bold where we were careful, and in our fear of that difference, we nearly destroyed ourselves and them. His voice grew heavy with old pain. "I lost my father in that war. He died believing the Kethari were evil. That difference itself was dangerous. I built my life on that belief. I created laws to protect us from ever being hurt like that again." He looked at Marcus. "And when I saw you a human who moved and thought like the Kethari once did, I saw only the enemy. I saw only my pain. I did not see an innocent being. I did not see a possible friend." The Emperor's patterns flickered with shame. "My daughter saw what I could not. She saw that fear makes us weak, not strong. That walls make us small, not safe." He turned to Lyria. "I am proud of you. Prouder than I have ever been. You are braver than I ever was." Lyria's eyes shone with tears. "Father, ... The Emperor raised his voice again. "I hereby pardon Marcus Chen of all crimes. Furthermore, I declare the trial of understanding to be abolished. It was born of pain and has no place in a society that seeks wisdom." He looked between Marcus and Lyria. "And I ask humbly that humanity give us another chance. A chance to be the partners we should have been from the start." The human delegation leaders stood. "We accept on one condition. That Princess Lyria serves as the chief negotiator. She has proven herself wise beyond measure." The Emperor smiled, his patterns finally showing warm gold. "I can think of no one better." In the days that followed, Marcus and Lyria worked together to draft a new trade agreement. Commander Thane was honored publicly for his courage in questioning unjust orders. The palace gardens were open to visitors from all species. On the last day of negotiations, Marcus and Lyria walked through those gardens together. The purple sun was setting, painting everything in beautiful colors. "You've got me into this trouble, human," Lyria said, but she was smiling. "You're the one who locked us in that tunnel together," Marcus replied. "I think that makes us even. Perhaps." Lyria stopped walking and looked at him seriously. "Thank you, Marcus, for showing me that rules are not the same as righteousness, that tradition is not the same as truth. Thank you for showing me that chaos needs direction, that creativity works best with patience." Marcus smiled. "Humans and Velians together, we could do amazing things." "We already have," Lyria said, looking up at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "And this is only the beginning." Somewhere above them, human and Velian ships flew together, carrying trade goods and cultural exchanges. The first joint research station was being planned. Young Velians were learning to appreciate human spontaneity, while young humans were learning the value of Velian precision, and in a galaxy full of different species, different ways of thinking, different approaches to life. Two individuals had proven something important. Understanding requires risk. Change begins with compassion. And sometimes, the best things happen when you get each other into trouble. Together, the end.